We don't talk about money or sex in America.
Guys, welcome to the Money Is Show, and today I've got an incredible guest that I want to introduce you to, and one of probably, in my opinion, probably one of the smartest guests that I've probably had on the show, and all the way from his company at Liquid Logics, but his background is in Microsoft, GE Global Sales. I haven't talked to you all about it, and does over $1 billion of money movement in his lending platform per month, 3,000 to 5,000 loans per month. Kind of the guy, the wizard behind the scenes, the Wizard of Oz of lending, perhaps. So you guys welcome my friend, my guest, Sam Kaddah from Liquid Logics. Sam, man, I'm excited that you're on the show.
Thank you.
And look forward to talking to you, mainly because, again, I think you're probably one of the smartest, highest IQs that's been on the show so far.
I would not call it that much, but I appreciate it. I'll take that one.
No, man, it's awesome. I had a great meeting with you in the office earlier, and your business is one of a kind, mainly because you're kind of birthed it, built it, pioneered not just your business, but almost really pioneered the whole industry that you're kind of in right now.
We did, and it was really not necessarily by the grand design, but just like falling into the right places and being able to adjust. And the key to these things is not the master plan you get into, is your ability to change, and we're lucky enough to be able to change.
Okay, now you just went through a lot of good knowledge right there, so I'm going to pull back for a second.
Okay.
So the first thing you talked about was it really wasn't your master plan. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's frankly, I was a global leader for GE, went in to run the Microsoft sales and marketing systems in there, so also running their global sales and marketing operations, and then find myself stumbled across the private lending world and the lending world in general. It was not a plan for me to exit out of the, call it the executive line or the executive track, and it ended up being happening by an accident, and that's when you learn how to embrace an accident. Okay. And embrace the opportunity and see the opportunity and jump on it. And that started in 2004.
Yeah, so it wasn't like, if I understand you right, it wasn't like you had sat down, created this awesome business plan, laid out a 120-page model that you were going to go create this Liquid Logics and this massive private lending back-end firm, if you will. There really wasn't no dream that was built there. It was more you were just being great at your individual job, your career. Saw an opportunity, stumbled across an opportunity.
Absolutely.
But then seized the opportunity.
Yeah, and it frankly was between a transition time between GE and Microsoft, where somebody asked me to give them advice for a week or two of what they're doing, which I walked in, told them, and I left. Yeah. And the conversations down the line developed of what does it take for me to come in and take over that operation. Long story short, I told them, guess what, you yahoos, I'm not going to be a CTO for a bank. I'm not leaving my global organization for you. And it turned out to be a 5-year agreement of, call it mid 8-figure agreement that we went into, and the rest is history. We started the organization.
So let's back up a little bit. I want to get a little bit of your background with GE and Microsoft. And I want to talk a little bit about how you were running stuff internationally and were almost working 24 hours a day with production around the clock with all your different locations. So give us a little bit of background. Was it Microsoft first or GE first? How did it work?
It was actually GE first.
Okay.
I was running the Upper Midwest practice for Ernst & Young, and I got recruited by GE.
So they came in looking for you?
Correct. I was recruited through that, and I ended up running 13 sites across 4 continents. So what that really meant, you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're probably talking to the Indian operations who are ready to go home at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.,
We have 11 and a half hour difference at that time. And then you progress down that timeline. You go into Germany, Italy, UK, East Coast, West Coast, and by the end of the day, 7 p.m., you're talking to, on the other side of the pond, to Australia, Melbourne, and those operations, jump into Hong Kong and China, and go home, have dinner. At 10 o'clock after dinner, when you're ready to call it and you're checking your email. Sometimes you're online chatting with the same people who went home in India, slept, and 12 hours later they're awake and they're back in their next day. And it's really within your one day of operation. It becomes a definitely follow the sun around the clock operation.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
Around 3.5 years.
Did you do a schedule similar to that right there?
Oh yeah.
Now, did you travel out those places as well?
Did. I had, I tried not to, but a couple of times, usually 1 to 2 a year, I do the 10-day around the clock or around the globe. So you start actually, you start from the furthest point, sometimes it's in China, and you work your way through, and then 10 days later you're crashing back at home. You don't know it's morning or night.
Yeah, you have no idea what time it is at that point. I've done those before.
I actually had a method that I warn everybody I'm coming in to do the reviews and meeting with, that guess what? You're working on my time. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. That's when I'm awake. You're going to be available. Yep.
That's good, man. So you did GE. Now GE, obviously, especially during that time frame, and even still today, but at that time frame was really one of the greatest corporations that was really ever built at that time.
Yeah, we were number 1, number 2 all the time.
Every year.
You know, and we were really, a production. We produced things in there. GE at the time was about a product, whether it's a power system and you have a power plant that goes into a ship, or a locomotive that is used somewhere around the world, to the medical systems. It changed throughout the years, obviously, where they are today.
Yeah. Now, did you ever, I know you were high up with GE, did you ever get to meet Jack Welch?
So I actually came in on Emil time.
Okay.
That right when Emil took over.
Yep.
And there, but I did meet Jack Welch because he was my instructor at the time for 15-day boot camp for the leadership program.
Wow.
That was an interesting 14 days.
Yeah. So he came back. He was retired at the point.
Correct.
Jeff was there, and
but he continued to be kind of the teaching the leadership program for the key people that are going through their process.
So you got to sit underneath Jack during some leadership training there for you.
Yeah, and you come in you land at 6, 7 o'clock at night. You think, okay, tomorrow we're going to start this. Let's go to a party. You'll have a quick meeting, and they hand you a book and a booklet and a homework, and you stay until 3 a.m. preparing for the 6 a.m. lunch.
Yeah, so no drinking party that night.
It's an interesting, high-paced, fast-paced, really high-intensity program. I loved it.
What about Jeff? Did you ever meet him?
A couple of times. You do that on an annual basis at that level. We had what we call the BOCA annual meetings that all the business leaders perform that are performing in certain business units and talk about their annual plans.
Yeah.
So it's obviously, to put things in perspective, I was over the productivity leader over $400 million business unit.
Yeah.
That was part of a $2.3 billion that he decided it's small enough, let's merge it with another one to make $6.7 billion business.
Yeah.
So it's like, $400 million is nothing to shake your hands off, especially when you're making 80 some million dollars in profits.
Wow.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. How many staff or contractors were you managing at the time?
At the time, it was a little bit over 2,300 people.
That you were managing and overseeing.
Yes, that's right.
Around the world.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what was the transfer to Microsoft? What happened there?
So the Microsoft reached out to me, and they reached out through. They had a need for somebody who has a knowledge of global operations and global outsourcing, and how it makes it work or not. And they had their sales and marketing systems for the business. Somebody needed to lead that, so they recruited me. That was around 3,400 people, also globally.
That you were, and same thing global as well for that one?
Yes, they were in several sites, but the mass concentration were in a couple of sites globally.
I want to ask you this question: what would make someone at your caliber at GE, running this global division, 2,300 employees, staff there, what would make someone like you agree to make this transfer to Microsoft? I mean, obviously they're both great companies, but you're already at GE. Why make the transfer? What drove you?
It's actually in those days, it's kind of really interesting.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that there's something specific. It's a new challenge. It's a different challenge. It's the fact that I was a technology-centric person within a global GE, and now this is a technology company.
Yeah.
And there gives you a little bit of, call it an aura or an attraction to be associated with
Right.
it. That's probably one of the key drivers. And the comp package doesn't suck either. So we go there.
Now you went to Microsoft, and then you see this opportunity on a basically a kind of a 60-day window you had, and you saw this opportunity with this random bank that had reached out to you to talk to you about giving some consulting, if you will, and that's where this opportunity of what you do now kind of presented itself at the very, very, very beginning of it. It's where it kind of presented itself.
Correct.
And then somewhere along the lines, you said, man, I'm going to leave this 7-8-figure job, whatever that you had at the time with Microsoft, and I'm going to go pursue this idea that I think could turn into something.
And it's actually was driven by lifestyle. Change in there. So at the time, my son around 5'6".
He was 5 or 6 at the time?
And they're 5.5, call it. But there is a gap when you're working around the clock globally that you don't spend a lot of time with them.
Right.
It was an opportunity and a wake-up call for me to literally change that fundamentally. And whether you are running a global operation around the clock or even a global operation in 2 or 3 sites, and you're an executive at that level, you're really consumed with it. Where if you wanna, and it's really a combination, a couple of things. If you want to spend some time, quality time with your family, that becomes a different perspective. I had moved at the time, early on in my career, I was in Wichita working for Raytheon Aircraft, and I moved to Kansas City. My wife's mom was terminally ill. They gave her 6 to 9 months to live, and she was a single daughter. We moved out, and we stayed there. And the decision was, potentially I'm going to come back, even to Raytheon. Then they found this experimental medicine that allowed her to live literally with a catheter and a pump of a medicine that goes in straight to her heart for around 7.5, 8 years. So she got to see my son, and she got to see him play t-ball. And at some point, I wanted to spend every moment possible with him. So the start of the company was also driven by the fact that I get to at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, go out and watch Alex playing soccer, playing baseball, go to basketball. And by the time he was 13, when he had picked up by Sporting Kansas City to play on their academy squad at the time, it was a heck of an experience being able to see every day his practice, and over the weekend on Thursday or Friday when he makes the roster, to pick up and then fly in somewhere around the country to see him playing.
Wow. And you went, you were with him.
Yeah, I had a couple of instances. I remember one, I believe it was in San Antonio, where the team won. It was raining, and they won 1-0 in the last couple of minutes. They're walking out to the crowd clapping, and I was the army of one. And instead of getting the clap, I got the hug from all the players.
Wow.
That was just priceless.
Yeah. That's a unique perspective, because most men and women, when they reach a level of success of making at a job like GE, Microsoft, you're making X amount of millions of dollars a year, you've got thousands of people underneath you. Most people find it hard to leave that. And you made the switch at 5.5 years old. You left and said, I'd rather spend time with my family. I did.
I did that, and it was a combination. Sometimes money is everything, and money is not everything at the same time. And you have to balance that with the value of your quality of your life. Trust me, it didn't work any less. If you own a business, you're working 7 by 24, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can balance and spending 3 or 4 p.m. till 9, and then I can work on my own from 9, 10 till midnight, and wake up early and do a couple of extra things before I even head to the office. So it was a lot of balancing, but it's that freedom to be able to adjust your schedule to give your quality of life was the priceless decision.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about family, but what I want to do is back up and talk a little bit about where you came from.
Okay.
And maybe see if there's any direct correlation about why family means so much to you in life right now. But back us up, because right now I know you're in Kansas City, Missouri. Say that right for you?
Correct.
And but you were not born there. Where were you born?
So I was actually born in Damascus, Syria.
Damascus, Syria.
I grew up to a very modest family there. My mom was a elementary school principal. My dad was an English teacher. He actually taught English to high school, and also went in to have an intensive language program to teach kids who wants to leave the language, and was a little bit associated with the British and the U.S. Embassy over there to develop some programs and relationships over there. So when I decided to exit, I came in here and I was looking at McDonald's, for example, and it was not French fries for me. It's potatoes. It's chips.
For
in other words. But I really grew up in a modest family that we were tight. We were close to each other. Matter of fact, what enabled me to make that step at a point, and I owe all of that credit to my oldest brother, who was able to at least fund me to get a ticket and a couple of $1,000s to get started in here in the country.
So how long did you live in Syria?
I was, I think, right at 19, 20 when I left.
When you left?
Yes.
And I know you said you have one older brother. Do you have other siblings?
I have two of them, or I had two of them. Both of them unfortunately passed away.
Wow.
But I'm the only one remaining at this time. But we were very, very close to each other from day one. Family was really important to us because we really didn't have much. We had each other, and there's it's the value of that closeness. Even if you see them once a year or you talk to them once every couple of weeks on the phone, that was priceless. That was what really kept you together.
Do you still have family back in Syria now?
Just kind of the second
level, cousins and that stuff.
Yeah, my mom and dad passed away at 84 and 73, and of course my two brothers passed away for different reasons. I
want to go back to what made you, when you were 19 years old, say, man, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go to America versus staying there in Syria.
Part of it is a little bit of opportunities. Part of it is a little bit of the uncertainty of the political situation over there. To be very frank, and there it's at the time, and this is something that's not many people. This is probably I never really speak of too much, but just to mention that is, my dad was really peaceful teacher, intellect. And he was picked up and arrested for 11 years.
Oh my goodness.
For political reasons, because he spoke of freedom and equality and being democratic governments. He's never been violent, one of these guys. He's not extremist by any chance, and he was actually respected by all parties. So I felt a lot of pressure to find opportunities somewhere else. Matter of fact, I got his blessing, and there for 11 months we didn't even know he was picked up from the street. But it was an interesting dynamic, and there after 11 years they actually released him, and there was a little bit of apology. It was a mistake of some mixed things, but it didn't really matter. I was in the 10th grade, so it was a lot of pressure for me to kind of reconcile with this. So I wanted a fresh start. I was actually an electrical engineer over there already, not studying electrical engineering, and I had an opportunity to either take my transcripts to finish or a passport to start. So I had to study electrical engineering twice.
You got basically 2 degrees, one in Syria and one in America?
Yeah, for the same thing.
For the exact same thing.
And I added in here computer science, and I did my master's after that. So I got there. But that was really a driver that is, not many people know that about me, but it was a driver of being humble and being able to find a different opportunity elsewhere without the pressures. Whether justified or not at this age is different, but it is definitely was definitely a factor.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I know it was something, like you said, you probably don't share a lot of. And When you got to America, did any of your brothers come with you, or were you by yourself?
No, it's my brother actually eventually made his way to Montreal there, and his family still lives there. And there, my other one lived in Dubai. He was a civil engineer whose specialty is high-rise analysis and design.
It's a great place for it then.
Yeah, 273 high-rises a year. It's not exactly a small thing.
Yeah.
And he was one of those guys who would have the fatigue and stress analysis that he would even consult and sometimes the city of Dubai of what the right structure needs to be in distressed buildings.
Yeah. When you first moved to America, where did you kind of land at or go to?
Wichita, Kansas.
Wichita, Kansas.
Actually landed in D.C. with a friend who facilitated a ticket for me to get to Wichita, Kansas. Yeah. And that's really an interesting story by itself when they go in there. I had an MIT acceptance in there.
Wow.
I had a Wichita State, and primarily because Wichita, not a lot of people know that, is known for their aerospace at the time. Boeing, Cessna, Learjet, and Beech Aircraft all were founded in Wichita.
Wow.
And they all
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Wichita State had in their facilities an air tunnel and a test tunnel. So if you wanted a high engineering degree, you can go there as well. And it was a little bit cheaper, but the true reason why I went there was this little stupid thing called your acceptance letter. And the form that you get your visa with is called I-94 or something like that. It's been so many years, 34 years now, since '86. But I certainly got the one from Wichita State, said, here it is. And by the way, that $34 application fee, when you come in, you'll pass, right? MIT said, congratulations, you've been accepted. Send us, I think, and their fee was $165. Send us that. So how am I going to send from Syria and the U.S. dollars to get that? So I contacted them and said, okay, well, if you come in the Wichita program or that piece that you have, you still can come into us. But there was this little law that's written on the books that says you're supposed to stay at least 1 year in the place that you came into. And that's in '86, '87. Nobody cared about that.
Sure.
But I had high respect for regulations, laws, and staying within the guidelines that I actually passed on the MIT and stayed in there. I could have went in to the master's program a couple of years later, but I got the job with Raytheon, and I did my master's through the executive Raytheon program at the time.
When one question I was thinking about when, I know you're really a super high level engineer with basically 2 degrees, one from Syria and one here, MBA and so forth. But what most of the time when I find engineers and work with engineers, they're very they find it very difficult to get into business. Almost like they're sometimes super over analytical.
Correct.
To certain things, and of course businesses has lots of X factors that you can't always calculate for and build a spreadsheet on. How did you kind of make that transfer from being this super high level engineer with GE and Microsoft into going into business? How did you overcome that?
So I think that's actually an interesting one for completely different reasons.
All right, great, let's do it.
The first one is I'm pragmatic.
Okay.
Very, very pragmatic. I compartmentalize really well.
Okay.
The other one is I have this creative side of me. I played violin growing up. So there's a long time ago, NASA and Microsoft actually adopted this. When they were looking for programmers, there was no such thing as a programmer. So they actually looked for math majors that play an instrument.
Wow.
And the thought was, you need that highly analytical person, but you need the creative mind to put notes together. If you do that, you're able to put these seemingly unconnected things to connect something to create a program and create a result. not that I did this consciously, but I think looking back at it is that contradictory mix in me of being pragmatic, compartmentalizing things, and being a creative and played growing up a little bit of violin.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's probably that whole mess that
what kind of created it for you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because a lot of times, like maybe the engineers don't have that creative side. You definitely have it. I mean, just the conversations we've had, backstage or whatever, your brain is very, very creative in how you want to structure, build, grow your business, which has to be from that creative side. Which if you don't have it, if you don't have that creativity or vision, it's hard to do what you just were talking about back there, or build what you have right now. And I wonder if the violin is what gave you that. Putting those notes together.
It could be. And, my dad said I still sucked growing up, but I did it and I enjoyed it. I really loved it.
When's the last time you played a violin?
It's probably 15, 17 years ago.
I may have to get one and have you play it back in my office for a little bit.
I'm not sure. I did it because one of my cousins in Dubai, her son is really talented and he played it.
Yeah.
So I played with him at the house one time and I still sucked at it. It was okay, but I was just like, okay.
Now tell me a little bit about Liquid Logics. I know it's a super complicated business, but you kind of took a traditional side of mortgages, loans, lenders, and applied it to an industry that really didn't have it at the time.
Correct.
Just high-level view for those that are watching. Give us an idea of what you built at Liquid Logics.
So Liquid Logics at heart is a combination of 2-3 things.
Okay.
And we started with a loan origination system and with a little bit of automated underwriting. The idea behind it, we want to make it easier and for somebody who is trying to apply for a loan, instead of having these manual process, to take it online and be able in 3.5 minutes apply, get considered, automatically get evaluated, and get pre-approval letters in under 3.5 minutes.
Right.
And that's what we achieved with it. So the idea is from there develop to what I like to call it, seeing the opportunity in the private lending world for the rocket mortgage of the private lending.
Right.
And so you have that experience up front. Couple it with the couple of other pieces that are clearly gap, and there are some old systems that are, call it Windows DOS based, that do servicing.
Okay.
And we created this whole thing from start to finish online for all the industry to be able to evolve and become competitive and institutionalized, meaning you're doing the borrowing application online, you're doing the underwriting assessment and closing online, you're doing the servicing and being able to pay your invoice or your monthly payments, as well as seeing your status online, all the way to the fund distribution. So these investors coming in know what their returns at any given time, and now we're taking it to the next level where you have a marketplace of funds and major money coming in either from the street or major investors and family offices to invest in a vehicle to allow liquidity and money for the borrower to be available whenever they need it, whether if it's a multifamily, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a fix and flip, any of those items being able to be funded smoothly and the money is reliably there. You're not going to somebody's neighbor who knows somebody who might have money to give you some loan, a one-off loan to grow.
Yeah.
You can grow nationally and real easy.
Yeah, so you took this kind of mortgage route, which is very, very common nowadays in traditional mortgages, where someone applies online, like you say, with a Rocket Mortgage or whatever it is, and they can really do the majority of it all online. They get the pre-approval, they can service the loan, they can pay the payments. Probably the average person out there is probably very familiar with that model now. You took that model and then turn that into the private money sector.
Correct.
Of it. A lot of these investors, business owners that are watching now are fix and flippers, and they probably fix and flip houses right now.
Okay.
Now they would not be actually getting a actual loan from Liquid Logics.
Correct.
That's not what they're doing. But you have all these other lenders that you obviously work with, or maybe they're using your platform and your system behind them. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a decent chance if you're applying online into one of these lenders to get a loan for fix and flip, that you're actually using a privately branded version of our system for those lenders that they tell you, hey, apply online, we'll get your loan.
So that's what you actually built.
I usually tell people, if you want to tell the difference, the one will get you some somewhat immediate approval, and you are really at 3 o'clock in the morning uploading your docs and doing everything, and the rest will have a form that you fill and say, oh, somebody will get back with you. That's not a system. That's not a system.
That's not you.
That's not us. I can guarantee you.
So, but if you fill it out at 3 a.m. and load all the documents, you could actually get an answer back in 3 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, you get that
from
initially.
a private lender.
Yeah.
The initial pre-approval.
Yeah, you get the initial one, and then your loan is down the line. Next morning they come in, process it, review it, and finalize it.
Yeah.
And you get your loan usually in a couple of weeks.
And to be clear to the viewers that are listening right now, although maybe I'm making it sound very simplistic, you're actually at this point moving billions of dollars per month through this platform that you've built right now.
Correct.
You're not doing even 50 loans a month. You're doing thousands and thousands and thousands of loans per month, and then moving billions of dollars.
Correct. We are not. We're not doing this on a small scale.
Yeah.
We're doing it in an aggregated scale, enabling you don't notice it as a borrower,
sure,
as an investor in your own fix and flip, but it grows up all the way through these channels to provide that type of dollars nationwide.
Yeah. Now I know that you built this Liquid Logics, and obviously it's already a multi-million-dollar company as far as net profit and so forth. But with you earlier, what I was amazed by is even though you've built this entire thing and you've found this level of success that most businesses never get to, your brain was walking on the road of how do you actually now become $1 billion company? There's another level that you want to get to inside of it.
True. I mean, I think it's really, this is an interesting one for me. Is I sometimes get asked the question, hey, you do something. Your competition could catch up to a degree or two, not everywhere.
Sure.
But so what do you do to beat the competition? And my response to it is innovate. When you're here and you think that you need to catch up with me, by the time you blink and you catch up with parts of where we are, I'm looking at the next layer up, and the next layer up, and the next layer up. Innovation never stops. I'm a strong believer of change and positive change. So when you do something, it's done today. Let's monetize it. Let's move forward with it. Let's get the next one up. We have to evolve. You either let things pass you by or you pass others by.
Yeah.
I like to think of me that I'm looking at the next opportunity, not because I want to pass somebody. I want to have everybody go up a layer up. The minute I bring in the industry to a next level, and that actually is going to serve us all well. Now I need to bring it into the next level. Yeah. And that's kind of what is, I guess, the one that strikes me is Emerald Legacy. Bring it up a notch. Yeah. Just bam, go do the next things up.
Have you ever heard? I love when business owners and businesses continue to innovate, because I think innovate is one of those words that has to happen inside a business. If you're not innovating and growing, you are dying then. Because someone is going to pass you up. Someone else behind you is innovating, and you will start to die. Have you ever heard the story of Mark Zuckerberg with his story when he bought one of the buildings for Facebook about innovation? Have you heard that story before?
I have not.
You're going to love this one. You should use it because I know you're an innovator. I went out with my team to San Jose, so you know where they're located, and he bought one of Sun Microsystems, if you remember them.
I remember those guys.
Yeah. And they were a massive company. He built one of the buildings that he bought, they went under. And one of the buildings that he bought from them was this massive, I can't remember how big this complex is, but it is absolutely huge. Complex that he built. I mean, that they bought from Sun Microsystems. And on the front sign, where they have this massive, when you pull in, there's this massive Facebook sign that's there. And everybody comes and takes photos because it's the thumbs up, and there's security guards out there because everybody stops and takes photos. But on the front sign of this Microsystems building, where now it's Facebook, on the back of that sign, if you will walk around the Facebook logo and go to the back of the sign, which they allow you to do, it's not a Facebook sign. he left up the Sun Microsystems sign on it. And in his story that he tells his staff is when they're in the building and they look out, they see this old Sun Microsystems logo on the back of that sign. And his whole story is, if we don't continue to innovate at this business, we will be a vacant building just like they were a vacant building.
That
and his
is
whole
awesome.
concept is he left their sign up only for his employees though.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And I am a strong believer. Jeff Bezos last year took some flack about saying, Amazon, like any company, will die. And the reality is, if you don't innovate, every company would die. Look at Kodak, look at Sears, look at even, to a certain extent, I worked at GE, and GE is struggling these days. And they lost their identity of innovation. And I think if you don't evolve, and something else will evolve around you. And you have to keep evolving. You can't just stay stagnant.
I love that principle. I want to ask you about your background with GE, and you and Eddie. We were talking about kind of geek out on some of the operations and the Six Sigma that you go through there. And if you could, maybe share one in business, I don't know if this is possible, but in your business now, is there any certain point of your old training and style that you got from GE and Microsoft, maybe with Six Sigma, that you highly apply in your business today? Is there any certain principle that you really use of that in your business today?
I actually still continue to use quite a few ones of those, but there's one I drive my team with. And there's an old term in Six Sigma called Pokiyoki process, which is in Japanese basically says make it idiot proof.
Make it idiot proof, okay.
I live by that principle. Time lapse and wasted time versus productive time. I do analysis on them all the time. Whether it's in the experience somebody is doing using the system, or whether something that we do ourselves internally. I sit down often and look at that. Did I make this process idiot proof? And I walk in there and said, don't be an idiot, Pokiyoki the process. I do that all the time.
The process.
And that's actually a principle I live with quite a bit still.
Do you think by doing that, it's what has enabled you to scale to the level that you're at right now?
To a certain extent, yes. And sometimes processes by nature slow things down, but slowing things down and make it predictable does not necessarily mean that you don't scale. It actually does allow you to scale in a great way. But absolutely, if you don't do that and leave it chaotic to a certain level, you're going to be suffering all the time.
I love that, man. Six Sigma is one of those things that was, if my memory serves right, Jack Welch created it. Is that correct?
Well, Jack Welch did not create it. He adopted it. It was actually created by Intel and their own processes. But Jack Welch adopted it. He loved it and made it institutionalized.
Made it famous.
Yes. But he adopted it more than just making it famous.
Right. I want to talk to you about, in business, I want to talk to you about failures. And in business and in life in general. But in business specifically, we get kicked in the teeth sometimes. And sometimes you show up to work, and even if you don't lose everything, you show up to work to do one thing, and the next thing you know, you're in this totally other area that you didn't mean to get into, and it turns into a massive, horrible day. When you go through any of those defeats, failures, disastrous concepts that you end up getting into, what do you think it is that drives you to get through those things? Are there any certain ingredients that you focus on while in the valley? Business owners today may be in the valley, right? They're in the middle of COVID and they're going through all this different stuff, and they're like, man, I feel like I've lost everything in my business, or it's not producing the way. How do you get through that valley right there in business? What are some of the things that you've used?
It's I have a different perspective on failures. I don't believe success is just there. I believe success is the child of 1,000 failures. And you always going to adjust. Listen, we never had our businesses when we went in and bought a book, How to Run My Business, right? How to run a plumbing business, no. Or how to run a loan origination business. You're gonna have to learn from mistakes. I always look at myself every day. I make maybe 10 key decisions. Out of those 10, maybe 6 in there, if I'm lucky, sometimes 3 or 4 are actually accurate. 3 or 4 of them are so-so, and another 2 or 3 are absolute failures and wrong. So I always look in next day. At the end of the day, I'm really happy I made the 10 and I gave it all what I have. Next day, I'm there to go and recorrect and make changes. So when people have bigger failures in there, instead of having a kind of a pause and say, now what do I do? Have grit and look at it. Where do I learn? Where do I adjust? Look for the next piece to adjust and move out of it. If you think that I failed and I don't know anything, guess what? Clear your mind for a little bit. Go out for a walk, step back, sleep over it, think it over, and find out the next step and have the grit to adjust. Have the courage to make a change, do something different. And by the way, if you happen to be, a very simple example, restaurants that had to close in COVID, right? There are a lot who said, okay, I don't know what to do. And there are a few decided, you know what, I'm going to change. I actually know a business in Kansas City that's actually changed his restaurant to a model of basic delivery. And he didn't do the normal delivery, what you think of people come into it. He went in and bought a food truck and he started delivering his meals in a specialty way everywhere. Think about something that you can adjust given the circumstances. And by the way, the circumstances, I can guarantee you, will change in 6 months. You need to be adjusting again. Don't think of it as failure. Think of it as, what did I learn from it? Where are the chances that I can actually capitalize on differently? Just don't sit there and take it as an experience, take it as a learning process, and take it as, what made it fail? What can I do different?
When it comes to, you've talked about this a couple of times now, and I want to circle back to it because you mentioned it again right there, which makes me think it's an important point, philosophy you have. Would you use the word pivot and change and adjust a lot in our interview here? How important is that for a business owner? A lot of times we get kind of in our path, our groove, if you will, and we run down that and stay on that path. But you keep talking about pivot, change, adjust, growth. Where is that coming from?
It's coming from that the acute disdain for the word, if it's not broke, then fix it.
Okay.
It comes in from the fact, even if it's not broke, it's never perfect.
Interesting.
Figure something out next. And yes, it's not broke. Yes, it's working for now. It's going to run its course. Move to the next one. Just, if you believe that standing still will get you to the next level, it's kind of like putting short. I can guarantee you're never going to hit that hole. Never.
Right. I like that, man. It's and the putting illustration is a great illustration. Because if you on purpose are trying to putt in front of that thing, you are not going to get in that hole. It's destined you're not going to get in that hole right there in putting the ball right there.
Correct. You'll get there late.
Yeah.
Some others will beat you.
You will get passed by others who are actually taking the shot basically, versus coming up short there. I want to shift over here. I got a couple of news articles that my team pulled up this morning.
Okay.
And normally these are fresh within the last 24 hours. And the idea here is I just want to get some of your thoughts, inputs on how does it affect businesses of things that are happening in our nation right now. This one is a unique one. I thought about this before you. This article says how businesses are raising money on crowdfunding sites like GoFundMe and Indigo to cover expenses. And that last piece there is kind of what I thought was the unique one. They're doing it to cover expenses right now. So they're going to these crowdfunding sites, if you will, and not raising capital to build something, but just to cover expenses. You're in the funding business, not GoFundMe, but very similar concept as far as raising money. What's your thoughts on businesses raising capital to just cover expenses?
I think raising capital in our world tends to be a little bit too glorified.
Okay.
It is very sound to cover and stay if you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Just be careful. It's an obligation you have to actually fulfill down the line. It's not free money, and these people doing it for the right reason, giving you the money, believing in you that you need to sustain through bad times. Just make sure don't overstretch yourself.
Sometimes in my own past businesses, when I was young getting into business, I felt like it was the answer was to go raise capital. And it was more or less I was just putting a Band-Aid sometimes over a bigger problem that was really there. And I felt like, well, if I just had this money to cover it, it would go away. And really it didn't. It just put maybe a bridge for a couple months or whatever it was, and then the same problem was still there.
Correct.
Now I was just in a deeper hole that I had to find a way out of.
Correct. And if you believe that what you're doing right now is temporary and has that solution and you're not doing wrong, that's okay.
Right.
But here's the number one, and I actually have monies gets offered to me with these times. You get
Sure.
the calls, say, hey, why don't you keep a line of credit here and there? As long as I have a way to make money and adjust, and there's sometimes, I wouldn't tell you what my tax bill I had to pay, and my accountant looking at me said, well, that's a small hit. You know what? I need to go make more.
Yeah.
Not necessarily go
Wow.
borrow for.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's necessary as long as you are not masking something.
Yeah, for sure. I like that, man. Let me give you another one here. I went through. This is talking about with fewer COVID restrictions in the South. South's economy has outperformed the nation overall. So I lived in Georgia. My family's from Georgia, and I was talking to some buddies of mine in New York City. And this is just recently. This is like 2 weeks ago. And he hasn't been out of his. He said he hasn't been out of his little bitty town recently. He hasn't even been out of the town. And he's like terrified. He's like, man, I feel like I'm in a bubble right now and I can't leave because he's so scared. We're in the South, really, in Florida, Georgia, and so forth. We pretty much stayed open for the majority of it. We shut down very, very little. And now the article's talking about how the South's economy is outperforming the entire nation. What do you think about how the government stepped in and kind of shut down so much of the stuff out there?
So that's an interesting one. It actually goes into another pragmatic piece. You cannot grow your way to prosperity by cutting expenses, right?
Oh, that's a good one. You cannot grow your way to prosperity
by cutting expenses.
By cutting out.
You cannot shelter in place and think you're going to recover. If you have an attack against you somewhere, you have to go face it. I'm not saying being stupid and go and give hugs and kisses to everybody you see in a COVID world. Get some precautions, but don't just bunker down. I think there's a balance we can do. There are examples in this world that actually did it successfully, and I believe it was Taiwan who actually forced a quarantine using our technology for 250,000 of their people, but did not shut down for a day.
Wow.
And they actually did okay. It was a little bit of using technology and tracing and getting things in together, but at the same time, they managed to find alternatives. I talk about change and finding alternatives. We have to find alternatives. And I'm not sure that what they did in the South is absolutely smart either, and to discard it 100%. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not also advocating for something that said, oh yeah, it's so bad, we just have to go in and put ourselves, just like the ostrich. If you put your head in the sand, that prey is still going to see you. You know what? They're going to get you. And you have to get up and find a balance somewhere. So my thought is, there's no surprise. There's a risk and there's a reward, and they took a risk, they rewarded, and I'm sure they paid some level of price. Is a human life valuable? Absolutely, anyone is, but at what level?
Right.
At what level can I find a solution where I can manage and maybe put some masks, put some things, but stay open?
Right.
Seems to be more logical, pragmatic solution than just saying, oh, absolutely, we can't do anything.
Right.
I think that's not a surprise to me.
Yeah. It's almost they went two extremes there on either side.
Correct. And you know what? There are some solutions if you just think out of the box and take the politics out of it. Somebody wants you to know that, there's no problem. And what the hell, where are you living? In Mars? And the other one says, the problem is so horrible, let's bunker down. I'll see you next year when you're starving, and I'll give you some food. So there's a little bit of balance that we have to undertake.
Yeah, for sure. I think a big problem is that politics gets involved with it, and they start making decisions not based off of what's right, but based off of what does their base want, or what do they think their base want to hear or see, or whatever it is?
I actually, I don't believe this is a political problem. I really don't. I think we just have to look at it to what it is. That's number one. Number two is the politicians are creating the two extreme scenarios to attract you to them.
Yeah.
And somewhere the reason has to prevail.
Yeah.
Or like the rest of the world will pass you by.
Yeah.
You have your choice.
I like it. Last one I got here for you. I thought you liked this one. With Jeff Bezos, you mentioned him earlier. This is talking about pandemic profiteers. These billionaires hit the jackpot during COVID-19 crisis. And in business, this is a unique one, because in business, a lot of times in the downturn, in the recession, as the market, economy, everything goes down in business, that creates an insane amount of opportunity. Warren Buffett, back the last recession, 08 through 10, if you look at what he was worth off of Forbes right before it and then after it, he almost tripled his net worth during the bad recession years we had in 08, 9, 10, 11, and so forth. But a lot of people now, especially with like kind of our cancel culture, are going after him, saying that he was trying to profit during a recession, if you will. As a business owner, you got any thoughts on it?
Good for him.
Yeah.
Simple. I mean, it's not a rocket science. He done few things right, and he did not invent the dynamics. He did not even try to profiteer from it, so to speak. There was a gap, and he was ready for that service.
Yeah.
And he excelled at it because he did another 1,000 failures, another 1,000 mistakes, and he corrected them, and he found himself in the correct structure today to actually benefit from the successes that builds on these 1,000 failures. Good for him. He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And if I find another opportunity similar to it, and he is acute to knowing that he needs to adjust. He's the guy who said all companies die.
Yep, true.
And took some flack for that.
Yeah, because it seems like, if you think about it, when they talk about this and they're trying to attack him for it, but the other flip side of it, when he bought that business in the recession or made that investment in the recession, he also created jobs.
Correct.
He also created ways for families to get paid and have a paycheck and pay for their kids' food and so forth during the same time. It wasn't like it was just 100% strictly him. There was benefit for a lot of other people involved in it.
I agree, 100% agree. And there are a lot of people who actually had no jobs were able to find actual work in a couple of areas.
Last question I got for you in this, and not I don't get too deep into it, but it's not on a news cycle. I'm just thinking through it as being a business owner and even coming from an immigrant coming over from Syria and being here in America now. Do you have any viewpoints and thoughts on big picture socialism and capitalism and how that affects our country? Obviously, it's like this huge, I'll say debate or whatever you call it going on right now between socialism and capitalism. You being from Syria, seeing stuff there, and then coming over here and being successful in business. What's your viewpoint on that?
It's there is a lot of predictable things around this within this debate.
Okay.
And we know, socialism to a certain extent, right, might help in make you mediocre. And will protect quite a few people who are not necessarily as fortunate, but also creates complacency, mediocrity. Capitalism is the answer for that. At the end of the day, I look at it for myself. At some point, I call it, I created a job for myself. And if I want to just sit down and rely on subsidies and handouts, we're never going to be great. I am personally thinking that actual capitalism provides the vehicle, the money to actually support some of these services and give when you can. But to revert back to socialism as the answer, there's a little bit of a problem with it, because guess what? It's not going to be enough. There's an old story, and talking about back home, there was a whole debate at one point, and that was I believe in the late 70s, in the Arab world, said, okay, Lebanon is this huge country, the small country that has huge profits from tourism. Let's become all tourism countries. And the guy, everybody said, yeah, it's a great idea. One person came back, and it was actually a minister in the Lebanese government saying, hold on a second. And the joke is, like, if you have a street that has one thief in it, right, you can steal from the other homes, right?
Okay.
And you'll be fine, you'll live okay. But if they're all thieves, where are they going to steal from, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying socialism is a theft by no stretch of the imagination. All what I'm saying is, if there's no mean for major production, all of your theory about equality of meaning handing out down, that's not going to have a source of revenue for it. So capitalism is good if you balance it with some social services. I think there's a balance in that has to play. That's really the takeaway.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% with capitalism and capitalism with the purpose of helping and giving back. And I'm going to brag on you just for a second because, again, in my office earlier, we were sitting there talking all business, and just from a kind of a random thing came up with people that needed help that just came to Utah, just from a random conversation that I don't think any of us were expecting to happen, and I don't want to get into it, but a random thing happened. And without hesitation, your first thing was to, hey, let me know how I can help. Who do I give money to? How can I help this process?
Correct.
And I think that's what and my point to everybody maybe listening is, you're not just saying have capitalism and then we should find ways to give back. You literally did it like an hour ago, whatever it was, without hesitation, jumped in immediately to go help.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just not even a thought in my mind.
Yeah.
It's absolutely something that everybody should get into and contribute.
But I don't think that government can regulate wealthy people to go give and give. I think that's where the problem's going to come into, where they try to step in and say, oh, well, you're wealthy, so give us all this, and then we'll go distribute over here where we think is best. That's where I think it runs into a massive problem.
I agree with that 100%, actually.
Yeah. But as long as you kind of, to a certain degree, what I'm saying is deregulate, wealthy people tend to always give back. You look at the biggest ones out there, whether you agree with them or not, but my point is they're still giving back, is you look at a Microsoft, Bill Gates.
Bill, yep.
I mean, what does he do? What is freaking Bill and Melinda Gates? They spent their whole life
Him
now.
and Buffett, no.
Yeah,
Yep.
You look at Buffett, right? He donated all of his money when he passes away and so forth, and even Bezos and everybody else, right? It's that mentality of making it, creating it through capitalism, and then finding ways to give back without having being told to go give back, which I think what we need a lot of. I think what would naturally happen if kind of government gets their hands out of it to a certain degree. It seems like the private sector can always produce pretty well here.
They can. They always have.
Yeah.
They always will. And there are some basic services that you need, and there are things like the prevalence of phones everywhere, right? And there we know that there's some balance on that. But aside from that, just let the market play its role.
Yeah.
It tends to do better.
It tends to do better, man. It normally works its way out.
Yep.
For sure. I want to get your answer on talking about Money Is here. I brought you on the show because obviously you have a super successful company that's growing consistently because you're always innovating. And the Money Is show for me was really about finding successful people and bringing the topic of money to the table. In the sense of a lot of times we don't, especially if you grew up in a poor family, money's not discussed a lot. Money's not ever talked about a lot. Opportunity of money, how it works, how you use it, what it is not really discussed a lot. Where I think probably a little bit more normal in our day-to-day lives, we tend to talk about money and business and investments at a constant pace. Like it's almost a lot of what we discuss. And so I just wanted to bring money to the forefront of people and have an honest, authentic conversation about it. And so I love this question. Money is blank. So what I want to do, you put your answer here, and then I'm going to have you sign it right here below it, and then me and you can chat with it here for a second. I can move that for you. And let me give you the Sharpie here.
I was going to say.
I'm not going to write this.
That'd be good. I have it in my mind. Okay.
There we go, right here. And you got Sharpie from you. There we go. All right, there we go. It's a very, very, very true defining answer of what I think it is. His answer is money is a vehicle. Money is a vehicle by Sam Kaddah. And you threw a smiley face in there. for me as well. You always do a smiley face?
Oh yeah, that's actually my signature.
That's your signature right there. Good,
Yeah.
good, good. So money is a vehicle, man. Extremely truthful answer of what money really is. But why did you put the word vehicle? Why did you put that?
It's a tool.
Okay.
It's not an end result.
Okay.
It's a mean to achieve something.
Okay.
It's something. Whether you're into philanthropy and you want to give it out, whether you need to make your life and your family's life a little bit easier, and it's not an end result. Your goal should never be money. Your goal is, what do I want in life?
Mm-hmm.
Find your why,
Mm-hmm.
and then the money is a vehicle that could help you reach there.
Yeah.
Not every goal is needs money, but it sure makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Money is a vehicle, man. Money, you're not going to take it with you. You're not leaving this planet with it. And the tool, the word tool there kind of coincides with vehicle, right?
Yes.
It's just you have to go use that thing. You got to go use money to help people, to grow, to give back, to create. But money is just a vehicle. It is not by any stretch the end game. It is not the end all be all. It's built for a purpose, and we got to use it for what it's supposed to be built for. I love that answer, man.
I appreciate that.
It's a very, very good. I'm gonna hang that one up for sure. Some make the list, and some make the wall, and some don't make the wall. That one to make the wall for sure. I want the viewers here. A lot of them are obviously business owners. They own a business. They're starting a business. They're in the middle of a business right now. They're going through growth right now. I want you to give them some advice, some last little kind of sending off last words of advice here. You work with major Wall Street hedge funds. You've connected the dots of all these different industries and have been innovative and forged a new pioneer path, if you will. What would be some words of advice you could give these business owners watching right now?
Have a lot of resilience, some grit, and some purpose. Find your reason and stay the course. Be flexible, pragmatic, but certainly stay the course. You will fail. You will fail 100 times. Failure is just another step going forward, and it's not a cliche. It's learn from it. It's only a problem if you don't learn something. But you're gonna want to find and pick the pieces of the puzzle that will eventually make you very, very successful. And that's, in my mind, the key element of being successful and moving to the next element. Grit, persistence, adaptability, what makes you successful.
Yeah. I love that word grit. It's my favorite words in business, because you have to have that true, undenying grit in business, or it will kick your ass and throw you back to the curb.
Oh yeah.
It has business does not play politics. It does not play race. It's just the marketplace, and your value can be created or not created, and it can accept you or it cannot accept you. And grit is one of those, I think, main pieces you have to have in business, right there, as you talked about. Love that word, man. I love that word. Sam, I love having you on the show. And if they want to get more information about you, Liquid Logics, where's a website they could go to get more information from you?
Liquidlogics.com.
Okay.
And there it's easy. You can always reach me. My number's there. I'm always approachable. I'm the guy that you can actually call at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I would answer. And reality is, I pride myself on being approachable.
Yeah.
And if I beat my staff to a support call or beat my staff to a sales call, I will take it.
You like it.
Call me anytime.
That is so awesome, man. That is, your personality is a very big personality, but I will give you, it is a very approachable personality. Since the first time I met you, man, you've been very wide open and easy to talk to and easy to get to know, man.
Well, thank you. You made it very easy yourself.
Yeah,
So.
no, it's absolutely my pleasure, man. So again, you guys follow Sam Kaddah here, and I appreciate you guys watching the Money Is Show for this week.